Time for our Capitol Report. We welcome in Pat McGuigan with CapitolBeatOK.com. And Pat, as we wind down the year, we think about a lot of big things have happened in 2011. So you're going to give us your top 5 of stories in the Metro for 2011. Let's start with 5, 4, and 3.
Yeah, I do a lot of writing for the City Sentinel in addition to my work for Capital Beat OK. So I'll put on my local hat for this. And we'll go in reverse chrono order, as you suggest. 5th place, the 5th most significant local story. You know, we're a government town. Yeah. Oklahoma City is a government town. The metro area is very tied in with the fate, good or bad, of state government. So the inauguration of the first woman governor in Oklahoma history, and then the policy approaches she's taking and her allies in the legislature are taking, that's the top story of the year, the 5th top story of the year for the city. Now, you've got broader economic conditions, but you've also got a conservative Republican philosophy that's driving some of this tendency towards tightening up in government. So that's a big story because of the people that it affects who are state employees. So that's number 5. Number 4, Oklahoma City, something it can certainly be proud of, Maps for Kids.
Yes.
The historic legacy of a decision made before we got into an equity lawsuit that the city would have lost. System-wide, massive improvements in infrastructure, just in time, by the way, for a dramatic surge in the number of students. We're now, again, the state's largest public school district, 43,000 students, roughly half, little less than half Latino and Hispanic, which presents challenges, but that's a piece of good news. That is in its last year. Maps for Kids will be done within the next 12 months. 3rd top story, the City Council's passage of the non-discrimination or anti-discrimination ordinance in terms of sexual preference or sexual orientation. That's a big issue, and it's kind of reflective of a larger thing, that it's not all on the liberal end of the spectrum, because the increasing diversity of our community. One quick snapshot on that in the faith community was that wonderful picture on the front page of the Oklahoman. They had the 2 Chabad rabbinical students driving in a souped-up car to make a knowledgeable point about Hanukkah. You wouldn't have seen that 20 years ago in Oklahoma City. So those are 5th, 4th, and 3rd.
Okay, all right. What do you have in as number 2 story of the year for the Metro?
Well, the more things change, the more they remain the same. Will Rogers had that great saying, if you don't like the weather in Oklahoma, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And just for purposes of shorthand, I'm going to include earthquakes. Because earthquakes are not weather. I get that, okay? Right. I understand, so don't anybody get upset. But put all this together, you know, environmental conditions, the things around us, extreme record-breaking heat, drought, earthquakes. Now, I don't think we had the frogs and the grasshoppers,
not quite,
but that may be coming. At times it felt biblical, you know, in its proportion to people who live and work here. We came out of it. November was actually a blessing because the climatological people say that it did a lot of the restoring of the water and the subsoil that's needed. Not enough. We're still officially in a drought. So that's number 2, and that's the city as well as the state.
I bet it is. All right, so the top story for Oklahoma City for 2011, Pat?
Not a surprise, although you could just continue to get mounting data that reinforce this point. The Urban Institute has economists, statisticians, and others that look at cities all over the United States. And again, something you just simply wouldn't have had even in the oil boom days of the 70s and 80s. Oklahoma City, they listed in the last 2 weeks as the number 1 city in the United States for economic security. And then they defined what they meant by that. It doesn't mean we don't have problems. It means in the current climate in the U.S. economy, Oklahoma City is in the best shape to leverage things and move forward. Other signs of that are overall rebound from the Great Recession, low unemployment rate, especially compared to other cities, a growing economy, especially compared to other cities. The Devon Building is a symbol of what's happening in the city. Even something like that Kevin Durant ad that's gotten a lot of attention because of what it shows about our diversity, about the different kinds of people who live here, and about where we are now as a city. The economic growth rates are, and a lot of the data are astounding, some economists. So add all that up, that is Oklahoma City's number 1 story for 2011.
And that's a good story. That's a great story.
Yep.
All right, next week you'll do the top 5 stories in state government.
Yeah,
We'll look forward
under
to
the
that.
dome.
Okay. All right, you can read about all of this and more at CapitolBeatOK.com. For Pat McGuigan, I'm Alex Cameron. See you next week.